All right? So, but the problem, of course, is that when you push people too hard, when it becomes so obvious you're exploiting people, then people will eventually revolt against you. So the solution that we figured out is what we can do is we can actually move, okay? The landlord class can actually move somewhere else. And so when the anxiety becomes overwhelming, what will happen is the peasants will destroy each other, and the landlord moves somewhere else to the capital, and they'll come back when the peasant class have completely exhausted themselves, and they're willing to rebuild society. Okay? And this process is what rules the world today. It is what we call transnational capital. In other words, the wealthy people of the world, they have absolutely no loyalty to nation or to people or to place. They only have loyalty to their capital. And they're willing to move to wherever they can, wherever they have to, in order to keep their capital safe and to grow it. And that's why a lot of people today are moving to...
Look, the thing that keeps confusing people, genuinely confusing them, is why Israel and China actually get along very well. And I know online it looks like they don't, because there's outrage and TikTok narratives and a lot of emotional framing. But if you go beyond all that, if you look at elite behavior instead of elite rhetoric, it becomes very clear. Israel and China work together because transnational capital needs them to. That's it. And I'll repeat that because it's the whole architecture. Transnational capital needs them aligned. It's not ideological. It's not sentimental. It's not religious. It's logistical.
This is Ecclesiastes chapter 5 and verse 8. If thou seest the oppression of the poor, and violent perverting of judgment and justice in a province, marvel not at the matter. For he that is higher than the highest regardeth, and there be higher than they. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah, Quadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who are the elders of Yasha Allah, and a sincere salutation to all you Akim, who are preaching this word and believing this word, and to the Akwat who are believing this word, in all truth and in sincerity. And I'd like to go into a lesson based on the clips that you just saw from Professor Jing. And I want to show how it relates to prophecy. Ultimately, the Lord told us aforetime, about the time that we will be living in today. And even though Esau's used this sophisticated language and complex verbiage, we all know ultimately that the world is being ruled by the wicked. All right, this is Job chapter 9 and verse 24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? And right now, the son of perdition is being revealed, Esau Edom. All right, the self-proclaimed European, self-proclaimed white man. His biblical nationality is Edom. And beginning with their elite, they have control of the planet at this point. They have control of the world. All right, that's why it says the earth is given into their hands. Now, what they've done with that is they've created this sophisticated system of fiat currency, all right, which is basically debt by another language. And they've used this system to wield their power. All right, this is why the professor mentioned transnational capital. Because ultimately the elites are transnational. They're not loyal to any nation state. They're not loyal to the United States. They're not loyal to the state of Israel. They're not loyal to China. They're only loyal to their agenda. All right, and ultimately their agenda is to take the blessing from Jacob and control the earth, hijack the blessing by putting the whole world into a digital form of captivity. This is why all the infrastructure is moving to a cashless digital society, so that AI can basically be a real-time taskmaster over everything. And what Professor Jing brought out in this lesson, if you will, because he's a college professor, is that the elites use this transnational capital to fund both sides of wars. This is why there was a mention of the China and State of Israel relationship, because ultimately the same person is paying both sides. All right, and this goes into the transnational capital. All right, now I want to get that term. All right, this is the Google definition. It says transnational capital. It says transnational capital refers to capital, money assets that moves freely across borders, driven by multinational corporations and global financial markets, creating an interconnected global economy beyond single nations. It's controlled by a global elite, the transnational capitalist class. All right, and this is how these elites are able to hide in the shadows, the real elites, not Bill Gates, but the true elites of the society. All right, they hide behind these shell corporations, these investment groups, and this is how they control what we know as the world today. All right, and this is why I wanted to point out the relationship China has with the state of Israel to show that even though on paper it looks like they're opposing forces, what you notice is that each nation is still making this attempt to go cashless, all right, making this attempt to transition IDs to digital form and creating this infrastructure. And I would argue that, China's more farther down the line concerning the image of the beast, this digital control system. All right, because when you deal with the Chinese system, everything is basically integrated. So if you, through the social credit score, if you offend the society, you're punished in real time. All right, and that is the goal, not just for China, but really it's the goal globally for these elites. All right, now I want to get this precept because it all goes back to prophecy ultimately. All right, these so-called elites are really tools that the Lord is using to bring about this judgment. All right, this is Second Esdras chapter 15, and I want to jump down to verse 46. It says, "And thou, Asia, that art partaker of the hope of Babylon, and art the glory of her person, woe be unto thee, thou wretch, because thou hast made thyself like unto her, and hast decked thy daughters in whoredom, that they might please and glory in thy lovers, which have always desired to commit whoredom with thee. Thou hast followed her that is hated in all her works and inventions. Therefore saith Yahweh Shemel Shai, I will send plagues upon thee, widowhood, poverty, famine, sword, and pestilence, to waste thy houses with destruction and death. And the glory of thy power shall be dried up as a flower. The heat shall arise that is sent over thee." So I want to bring this out because when you deal with the relationship of China and the state of Israel, which was brought out in this clip, they're all loyal to the same people that are funding them. All right. Matter of fact, let me get this real quick. It says Proverbs chapter 22 and 7. The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. All right. And when you look at it and you zoom out, what you notice is that the same system of bribery that works for these high paid athletes and entertainers, it also works dealing with nation states. So all the nation states really are compromised. This is why they all have a central bank. And through those central bank systems, they take on debt to forward their society. And who are they in debt to? They're in debt to the elites. And this is why both sides of the wars are being funded, per usual. All right, this is nothing new. The elites have been funding both sides of these wars for some time now, because again, they're transnational. They're not loyal to any nation state. They're loyal to their own agenda. And at this point, they're even putting their own people in the food chain, if you will. So they're looking at their own people as meat at this point. All right. And as the scriptures say, he that is evil to himself, to whom will he be good? All right. And that's exactly what you notice is that the reason the waters look so muddy to the natural eye is because they're used to seeing Edomites on one page or on one accord, so to speak, concerning white privilege, if you will. Well, what's happening now is that the elites are stealing from their own people. All right, they're robbing the middle class. They're stealing from their own people, and this goes back to the term that this professor used, which is the transnational capital. This class of people that are not loyal to any nation, even their own. All right, this is Ecclesiasticus 14 and 5. He that is evil to himself, to whom will he be good? He shall not take pleasure in his goods. There's none worse than he that envieth himself, and this is a recompense of his wickedness. So what we're seeing is that the Russian-Ukrainian conflict is a perfect example that the elites are willing to throw their own people under the bus to gather and to increase their own riches. The scripture said that his desire is as hell and is as death and cannot be satisfied. And what we're seeing is a concentration of that amongst the elite class. And the reason that most people don't understand what's going on is because they're not grounded in prophecy to see that the Lord said that these things will happen. Because ultimately it's going to equal up to sedition as they attempt to bring the system into existence. To make this system completely digital, there's going to be a major resistance from the average so-called white people, which is going to bring up sedition and civil unrest, because they're going to recognize that they too are being added to that food chain by their own elites. All right, real quick, just to highlight that, because it all goes back to prophecy. The Lord has put this plan in the minds of these elites, and ultimately they're being used as a tool. All right, the Lord said he made everything, even the evil, the wicked, for the day of evil. So their plan that they believe they're going to bring into fruition is really being used by the Lord to exact judgment, because a lot of people are going to be judged in the midst of this. All right, this is Isaiah 19:2, and it reads, "And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight every one against his brother, and every one against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. And the spirit of Egypt shall fail in the midst thereof, and I will destroy the counsel thereof. And they shall seek to the idols, and to the charmers, and to them that have familiar spirits, and to the wizards." So this is going to end up in sedition, because the average Edomite is going to recognize that they're being thrown under the bus as well. And it goes back to the topic of the lesson, which is this transnational identity that these Edomites, these elite Edomites, identify with. And that means that they're not loyal to any nation state. They're not loyal to anyone except for their own agenda. And they're willing to throw everybody, including their own people, under the bus. And this is what we see happening right now. Even the wars and the rumors of wars are being funded on both sides to forward this agenda. Now, we understand that the chip has to come first before World War III really breaks out globally, full scale. But even before that happens, you're going to have these little skirmishes. And the elites are funding both sides of the skirmishes. All of these nations are basically drinking from the same well, because the elites are in control of the majority of the capital on the planet. And they're using this game of nation states and central bank and the IMF and this, all of these things are being used so that they can carry out their agenda. But ultimately, all right, the Lord said that he was going to use them, but ultimately they weren't going to bring their plan to complete fruition. And see, right now, this is why you notice that all of them are working for the same people, is because whether it's China, whether it's India, whether it's Russia, whether it's Australia, whether it's the United States, they're all moving to this digital landscape. They're all moving towards this same digital landscape. They're all calling it something different, but it's the same plumbing, it's the same infrastructure. Because the intent of the elites is to rule the planet with one government, where they are in complete control, where AI is the digital enforcer, and everything is so digitized that if you don't participate, you can't get your necessities. That is the end goal, and they're using the funding of both sides of everything and the bribes to bring about this agenda. All right, real quick, this is Job chapter 20, and I'm going to jump down to 22. And it reads, "In the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits. Every hand of the wicked shall come upon him." And when you go into that word wicked, it goes into the laborers. All right, matter of fact, let's go into that. And at this point, even the average Edomite is a laborer. All right, they are subject to their own elites. So what's going to happen is they're going to attempt to revolt. All right. And this scripture is going into how they're going to get close to that plan, but they're not going to complete it. All right. And that's why the scriptures say knowledge and wisdom shall be the stability of thy times. The reason most people are unstable because they're not grounded in prophecy. They still think that there's a chance to save the system, that there's a chance to change what's about to happen. And the reality is no, it's no way to change what the Lord has already proclaimed. But the elect of the nation of Israel, Lord willing we be a part of that number, are going to be saved in the midst of this. All right, this is Job chapter 20. And again, I'm going to jump down to verse 22, but I want to get that Hebrew word for wicked. All right, and it says amal. All right, and it says labor, suffer, wretched one, labor, workmen. All right, because at this point, he's through this system, everybody's subject. Through this system, everybody's a servant, even leaders of whole nations, leaders of countries. And that's why I left that example of the state of Israel and China. Because at this point, the bribery has been so rooted in this system, it extends to whole countries. And nobody is safe, so to speak. Nobody is not juiced in when you get that high on the totem pole. So even though it looks like China and the US are at odds, they're all funded by the same people. And that's the zoom out that the Lord is showing us according to prophecy. This is the vision the Lord is showing us according to prophecy. Because if you don't have this vision, you get caught up in voting Democrat or Republican. You get caught up thinking that China is the enemy and the United States is the bad guy. And it's like, even though the United States, again, is the spearhead, or ultimately the elites are in control. Even the leaders of the U.S. are not in control because they're still subject to the borrower. I mean, to the lender. They're still subject. They're still a servant to the lender. And who is the lender? These elites whose wealth really can't be counted. All right, real quick, I want to go here. It's Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 4. It reads, behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. And he's used this global financial system, along with the military might, to gather all people unto him. This is why all these nations have central banks. This is why they all have to answer to the IMF. This is why you have the economic hitman, because everybody is economically tied in together. And the elites are the ones that are holding the strings. And that is the truth of the matter, if you will. All right, because again, there was a certain point where the Edomites shared the privilege. The elites of the Edomites still had the money, but they still shared the privilege. And you saw that in Jim Crow. But now we're at the end game, if you will, and all of the wealth is being concentrated to the elites, and they're going to use this digital Rome to keep back the masses, to keep the masses in control. So if you speak against this system, money's just going to automatically be deducted from you without someone having to knock on your door, because everything is going to be tied into a digital grid. That brings us to Revelation, the 13th chapter. All right, I'm going to get that. There's Revelation chapter 13 and verse 15. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. All right. And again, we go into this often when you deal with the word killed. It could mean physically killed, or it could mean of separation. All right. From the real ID, the digital ID, all of these systems are gradually pushing everybody to a digital infrastructure that once you're tapped in, you lose all control and all freedom. And there's nowhere you can go to complain. All right, continue in verse 16, because this is important. It says, he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. And that is the end goal. The end goal is to put everybody into this digital system by taking that RFID chip, inserting it into your body, and at that point, that is the checkmate. Because without ever seeing or speaking to the elites, they can control your entire life to where you can't speak up. And at that point, they can truly take the mask off and really rule in wickedness. Right now, they have to rule with a certain level of how should I say it, subtlety, because you dealing with the United States is a perfect example. There's more guns here than people, so they have to use a certain level of subtlety. But if they're able to bring about this digital form of Rome, then they can really take the mask off. Because again, if you don't comply, you'll lose your money. You'll go to your bank account and it'll be zero. And you can get your gun and go outside, but who are you going to go? Who are you going to attack? And that's the end goal. The end goal is to bring all of this control that they already have and transfer it into a digital medium where they can tighten the noose. And they're willing to bribe anybody, including entire countries. All right, and that's what you notice with this term transnational. All right, and when you look at how if you look past the political stage and you look at what the money is doing and you look at the decisions these countries are making, it's pretty obvious that the same people are paying them. This is why the digital system is still being unveiled globally. None of these major nations are going against it. They're all trying to transition into something more cashless and more digital. All right, this is Ecclesiastes 7:7. Surely oppression maketh a wise man mad, and a gift destroys the heart. All right, and when you go into that word gift, it's a bribe. All right, and it shows you that those bribes are extended even to nation states. All right, real quick, Ecclesiastes 7:7 in the NLT says, extortion turns wise people into fools, and bribes corrupt the heart. And at this point, this is why the Lord says he's going to leave them neither root nor branch. The Edomites have their roots dug into this place. It's dug into the control of the earth. And it's because they've bribed so many people and put so many people to death who have opposed them that really there's nowhere you can go where you're not in their grasp. And this is why it's going to take the Lord to deliver the elect. As the scripture said, we are for a prey. Yet they're going to get close, but they're not going to complete it. And see, now that we're at the end, these things are starting to become more and more obvious to a point where you have a professor teaching this in his college courses, that this is what's happening on the planet, which shows you we're getting close to the end of this free speech that everyone's enjoying right now. And that's going to bring about the famine of the word. All right, so Lord willing, this was edifying. With that, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah, Quadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who are the elders of Yasha Allah, and a sincere salutation to all you Akim, who are preaching this word and believing this word, and to the Akwat, who are believing this word in all truth and in sincerity.